I'm here today with Silicon Valley pioneer Prem Talreja and entrepreneur and founder of Freedom English Academy, Deepak Chopra. Pleasure to meet you both.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so, could you start by each providing a brief introduction to yourselves?
Prem, would you like to go first?
Okay, I will. Thank you, Sunita. And well, I'm off the Silicon Valley and in the Silicon Valley for the last 40 years. My journey has been off the Silicon Valley, which is in the enterprise and technology spaces. But most recently now I am the Director of Development for Freedom English Academy, which you can see here and which we'll talk more about. I'm very passionate about what we have to offer here in social entrepreneurship, which is a good word for Silicon Valley as well. So I'm looking forward to telling you more about what we are doing.
Absolutely.
And so I have been an entrepreneur for most of my working life, and the bigger part of what I do now is run Freedom English Academy. And again, we'll come back to this in a minute, but I think I should say it's not really just a passion, it's more of an obsession. That's what takes to run Freedom English Academy.
True.
Fantastic. And so what was the genesis for FEA India?
So I grew up in Delhi, and in a middle class family, both my parents had a college education, so we were reasonably well off. But growing up in India, you can't escape all the poverty that's around you.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, it's not gotten better. It's still as bad as it always was. No matter how well fed you are, you look out the window and there's somebody hungry walking by. So as a teenager, it struck me that this is really a human tragedy, that people lead such diminished lives. And I just wanted to do something about it. Now that was as a teenager. As I grew older, that just stayed with me. The poverty never went away. And I was exposed to it. I felt deeply about it, and I felt that it would be what I wanted to do with my time and my creativity.
Absolutely. And could you both state the importance of acquiring English skills for India's youngsters? And Prem, I think especially for Indian youngsters that want to come to the US, the new pioneers.
English is a very big part of success in the world. It's a language of communication, and we Indians actually have a head start. But the lot of people are left behind because the schools don't provide you a good English medium, and I think that at the very least these youth are going to become bilingual. But I think the big impact is that if you don't know English, you are really relegated to manual jobs you can do with your hands.
Interesting.
Because Hindi is not that spoken in business world. But the moment you learn English, you've opened yourself up into careers that were completely left behind for you. And if you get into those careers, you know the economics of that is an entirely different level. And the journey can be very long.
So we operate only in low-income neighborhoods.
Okay.
And therefore, it's a self-selecting audience. If you're well off, you're unlikely to be living in that neighborhood. We have branches that are located in low-income neighborhoods, catering to students that live within, let's say, 10, 15, 20-minute walking distance from that branch.
And could you talk about the program itself? And,
yeah. So the program has English as a starting point, and many people that have come to the US would be familiar with something called TOEFL when they come for college education over here.
Right.
The same company also puts out a product called TOEIC, which is Test of English in the International Context. It really is testing people's ability to speak English for the workplace. So what we do is build that level of English that you're comfortable, competent in the workplace and able to communicate and express yourself. Beyond that, as an entrepreneur, my view is that success in life is only very partially attributable to what we learned in school and in college. A bigger part of our success comes from our grit, our perseverance, our discipline, our determination, our self-confidence, ethics, our ability to postpone gratification, our ability to communicate, collaborate, get along well with others. This whole field is referred to by the academics as non-cognitive skills. So that's a big part of what we do, is build non-cognitive skills. And it's actually very visible. If you come into our branches where there are new students, and then you go to the same branch later in the day that has students that have been in the program for, let's say, 10, 11, 12 months, it's like night and day. The first group of students, and sometimes I do this, I go in and ask them, I'll talk a little bit about the program, and I'll tell them, hey, ask me a question. And you know, it's sad that 17, 18, 19-year-old kids will not open their mouth and even ask a question when they come into the program.
Yes.
But 9, 10 months later, you can't get them to shut up. Everybody has so much to say. Similarly, I think we are underestimating people just because they come from a low-income background. It does not mean that they don't have the aspirations, and it does not mean that they don't have the capabilities. So at Freedom English Academy at FEA, if you asked around, there's a lot of kids that aspire to be teachers, to become, to get IAS jobs, to get into IIT, to get into the Indian Foreign Service, etc. It's like all over the place. People want to become musicians and dancers and whatever they want to do. We don't focus on just empowering them to become strong, to dream big, and giving them a way forward, giving them a path to do it.
Deepak, you've talked about the enthusiasm of the kids that are enrolled in the program. What about their parents? Do they see this as taking away from their home duties, chores, etc.? And are they resistant?
So that's a great question. So firstly, in terms of numbers, since we have very large numbers, we have about 27,000 students coming into our classrooms every day.
Wow.
There's a variety of experiences. There are parents that are very supportive, there are parents that are not supportive at all, and there are parents that are agnostic. But I would say that the majority of parents are supportive, more supportive than not. And towards the end of the program, if we can figure out a way to keep students that are not engaged because of the family reasons, if we make them engaged, for them, parents consistently are supportive. So by the end of the program, because the changes are visible to the parents as well, the changes are visible to the families, and we have parents coming up and expressing their thanks in all kinds of ways.
Absolutely. Prem, can you talk a little bit, as the development director of FEA India, could you talk a little bit about Americans' enthusiasm for FEA?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure. I think that it only costs $200 to educate a student in India for 1 year. Okay,
that's fabulous.
It's fabulous.
Yeah,
and that $200 investment, if you want to call it that, in social change. Think about the lifetime value of the income that person will make if indeed it is proven that it doubles, right? So the $200 can have a 200 or 2000x return for that investment. So now we are opening up to the idea that, we are asking that invest in one student for $200, or invest in 500 students for $1,000. Okay, that's not a big ask, right? And open a branch for $25,000, right?
Yes.
So all of these are possible avenues for gratifying yourself and sharing your wealth. And I think that we are launching into this campaign with your help and other things that we're going to do. But I have no doubt that just in Silicon Valley, we probably have 1 million Indians or 500,000 families, that we have the means to make a major change to the trajectory of what Deepak is doing himself. Why not?
Absolutely. Yeah. Deepak, do a lot of your students return as mentors?
Not as mentors, but we have about 400 teachers or facilitators, out of which about 150 are former students.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So we have a lot of them. We have an active alumni association. So the alumni help with finding new students and with helping motivate and energize students that are on the borderline. They may drop out, or if they're having families that are not supportive, we'll send a troop of them to your home and we'll convince you that, hey, especially for girls, in some communities it's a little bit harder than it is for boys.
Right.
So to their home, if a bunch of girls from their neighborhood come and show up and say, hey, auntie, they'll call everybody auntie, that look at me, I went through the program, nothing bad happened, and really good things happened to me. That's very powerful. So we help reduce the dropouts by using our alumni.
That's fantastic. And do you have an equal number of women and men participating?
So that's an interesting question. Starting out, it's about 50-50, but ending, it's about 55% in favor of girls. Girls are actually easier to educate than boys.
Interesting.
boys are not as sticky with the program as girls are. I guess they're. I guess a sociologist would tell you the reasons, but yeah, graduation rates are skewed in favor of girls.
Can each of you speak about a child who you felt particularly inspired by, and who represents, if you will, the work that you're attempting to do?
So actually, more than the child, I'll talk about a fellow called Ram Lal. So we have these graduation ceremonies every month because it's a rolling program. So about 2 years ago or so, I did a graduation ceremony, gave a little speech, and everybody talked about this, that, and the other. So once I was coming out, this man, well-dressed gentleman, comes and says, I just want to say thank you to you. And so we shook hands, and I said, tell me a little bit about yourself. So he says, my name is Ramlal, and I sell bananas. I have a fruit cart in Agra. So he says, I've come from Agra just because my second daughter is graduating from the program today, and I wanted to thank you because my first daughter graduated, and she's actually working for FEA as a facilitator, and my second daughter is now going to appear for her IAS exam.
Wow.
And he says that as a banana seller, it's something that I couldn't fathom even that this day would come.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
That is really incredible. Congratulations to
Thank you.
And Prem?
Yeah, so I'll explain. I have a class that now I've mentored for 3 months. So I've gone through class 1, 2, and 3, call 1, 2, and 3 with them. And there is 11 kids in that class. I can talk about all 11 of them. They're so different, so excited, so different views of where they want to go in their life. There's one girl, her name is Brinda, and she started out by saying she likes art and wants to be an artist. Okay, and we actually say that look at what you love doing, look at what you're good at, and look at generally where the industry is willing to compensate you for that.
Right.
And then if you find the intersection, that's a win-win-win. So I was coaching on those lines to all of them. But Brinda, I said, Brinda, that's great. You want to be an artist, but you could consider understanding where art schools are, what art school you can go to. And of course, in my mind, I was thinking that it's a tough profession. You got to build a portfolio and what kind of artist you'll become. And maybe that's lack of my understanding of that skill. But I sort of mentioned to her, I said, well, Brinda, and by the way, FEA also tells you what kind of jobs are out there, right? So, or kind of categories of jobs. So I was looking at one which is of my own passion, photography. So I mentioned to her, I said, Brinda, photography is also a form of art, and there's a big need for news and that kind of work.
Yeah.
So I think she took it that day, and I didn't say a word. Next class, she says, sir, I'm looking at photography and digital photography. So I'm just telling you how I felt. I said, okay, so you got it. Last week, I had my third class, and I was actually so amazed. She says, I have decided I'm going to become an animation engineer.
Wow, fantastic.
That's amazing, right? I can't wait to see her do it. She'll be graduating out of my mentorship, but it's like, wow.
That is really
it
amazing.
Worked, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that if you Google Freedom English Academy, it will bring you to our website, which is also feaindia.org. And you're welcome to join us as a mentor if you have the time, which is about an hour a month for 5 months. You could join as a volunteer. There's all kinds of things that can be done. And thirdly, you could join as a contributor or a donor. The cost for the program is $200 per student. So you could, pay for one student or more, or whatever works for you. So those are three different things three different ways to connect, to contribute.
Fantastic. And I forgot to ask you about scaling up. What are your plans for scaling the program?
Well, that's an interesting question because obviously I'd like to scale up the program. There's literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of students that would love for the program to be scaled up. But it's really a question of, does the community care? Are there enough people in the world that care? Because we are at the level we are at, 27,000 students, as I said, and we're growing at about one branch a month, and we'll continue doing that for the foreseeable future. But we can only grow faster if there is others out in the world who care about this.
Right.
I'm sure people care about all kinds of things, but do they care about this? That's a big unknown to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And over the past 8 years, how many students have come out of the program in total?
About 120,000 students have come through the program. Not all of them have graduated because not everybody sticks around for the duration of the program, and for multiple reasons. For example, if their families have moved out of the neighborhood, they can't come in anymore. Sometimes they get better jobs than they already had, and then they can't afford to give up on that income, and sometimes for other reasons as well. But about 120,000 students have come through the program so far.
Fantastic. Pleasure to meet you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you
so much.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yes. Thank you.